If you are an entrepreneur or a business owner, then this is the episode for you. In today's episode, I talk to my good friend and fellow entrepreneur, Fiona Turner. And Fiona has an amazing background in marketing, working for major advertising agencies in London and also in Sydney, and then moving into working in marketing and futures and AI departments for major banks and financial institutions here in Australia. And on top of all of that, she is a serial entrepreneur and the founder of an amazing company called the Soul Hive. So in today's episode, we talk about the hurdles that Fee came up across in her entrepreneurial journey, the failures and the successes that she's had, and also the things that she sees, the mistakes that she sees new business owners, new entrepreneurs making. So if you want to level up and avoid making those mistakes, just tune into this episode and let's get into it. Welcome to the Becoming Your Warrior podcast, Fee.
Thank you, Em. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's really good to have you here. And I'm super excited about today because I know you have so much to offer everybody, especially when it comes to business and your journey, creating the Soul Hive, and all the beautiful work that you're doing. So I want to start, and it's a biggie. I just want to start by asking, in business and in life, what has it taken for you to be where you are right now?
Starting small, I see. What has it taken to get here? It's taken a lot of years doing things that I didn't want to do. Decades in the wrong industry, just working for the dollar, doing what everybody else did, until circumstances forced me out again, and I learned to trust myself.
You got that into a nice little paragraph. That was great. So tell me a little bit about your background. So before you started with the Soul Hive and you set up your business, talk to me about these industries that you were in. What were they?
So I started out in advertising in a London agency called TMP. And that's how I came to Sydney. So I moved over here as an account director, and then spent maybe 15 years in various marketing and advertising agencies before then kind of consulting a bit into financial services, went through all the banks and a Big Four consultancy. So background's very mainstream. I was always client facing. So that's kind of a key thing, that I was never creative. Looking back, I think I really wanted to do a graphic design degree, but I didn't. I did social anthropology. Didn't use any of that, went straight into marketing. And so this is where now I am a creative. So this is a huge change.
And can we talk about some of your other businesses that you had along the way as well? You were obviously in these mainstream corporations. And then tell me a little bit about that entrepreneur's journey.
So I was working with Pfizer in pharmaceutical marketing. Ooh. And yes, taught me a lot. You've got to get into the belly of the beast to really understand it.
What a journey you've been on, my goodness.
And there I met someone who became a really good friend of mine. We all heard about this person who'd been at GSK, and then she'd gone through this course and set up a business on Amazon FBA, fulfillment by Amazon, and gone from $0 to $1 million revenue in a year. So we're all sitting in these, pharmaceutical healthcare jobs that we're like paying the bills, going, wow, if we can do it, we can do it. So we all went on this course, and it was one of these things that sort of ripple effect. Someone would tell their friend, they'd tell their friend. And so on the very last day, I bought this course, and I'm like, now or never, change your life. You've got to invest. You've got to invest in yourself to do it. So I went on this course, and from that, my results showed hammocks would be really good. So I set up a business called Hero Hammocks. I followed the process and found manufacturers in China, got samples, committed to one factory, got my hammocks made. So it was an expensive process, but it was e-commerce is a huge training ground. And I think if you really want to understand business, e-commerce is one of the best ones to learn from. So that's where I started. And that journey as well made me realize I couldn't work full time and do this Hero Hammocks Amazon business and sustain a life in Sydney. So I went full time into Hero Hammocks. And then, of course, I got a cash flow problem because I'm spending $10,000-$15,000 for every time I'm producing my hammocks and money's running out. So I made the decision to move back to UK. And at the age of 40, moved in with my sister, which I thought was the most shameful thing ever. I thought I was the biggest, really did. I remember being on the plane going, you know, what a loser. You've got nothing. You're having to move back with your very successful sister in her mansion at 40.
I mean, some people might say you're lucky, but yeah.
And through that, Hero Hammocks went on for about a year and a half until I got pushed out of the market financially. So I decided to let it go. And at that time that I was deciding to let it go, I was back in my home village in Goring-on-Thames in the UK. And I went to the local pub, and there was one of my school friends who'd come back from 3 years in Brazil with her family. And she said to me, Fee, I know you know how to set up a business. I've just found the world's perfect leggings. And I want to start selling them. And I'm like, ooh, perfect leggings. Like, who doesn't want perfect leggings? And these were Brazilian leggings where, you know, if you know Brazilians, there's no black and dark. These are flamboyant, they're fluoro, there's patterns and all sorts. So we started, I pivoted, I closed down Hero Hammocks and set up Memel. And this again was just, I really felt right. Everything felt right about this. The products were amazing. Within 1 month, I'd built an entire Shopify website with about 100 SKUs. I had a mannequin. I was getting the clothes in. I was doing all the photography, all of the marketing. And then a month later, we had retailers. We'd gone around all the gyms, all the yummy mummies around, clamoring to get into them. And it was just going off. And it was fun days until it wasn't.
Hey, obviously it's going off, it's flying off the shelves kind of thing. What happened in that business?
We had a production issue with the factory, and it's something I never got to the bottom of because my business partner spoke Portuguese and dealt solely with the business, the factory side of things and the quality. And I had no part of that because I don't speak the lingo and I'm doing everything else. Something went wrong, and we couldn't get it back. But it wasn't meant to be. So it died a death, and it was very, very painful. It was a very difficult business dissolution, as in we don't talk. It was very difficult. So that was another big lesson. If you go into business with a partner, with a business partner, there are a lot of things we missed on that. Legal things, compatibility, things right at the start. So the lesson there is if you work for yourself, it's one thing. If you go in as a business partnership, it's a whole different ball game.
What advice would you give to somebody who is maybe thinking about going into business with someone or partnering with someone, like based on your experience?
And so what they do in startup world, there's a lot of founders and co-founders, is there's sort of like a form. It's a bit like a kind of questionnaire, almost like a kind of dating thing where you're looking for compatibility. And I did it with my business partner right at the end. And the answers were so extreme. Like, if I'd done that at the beginning, we probably wouldn't have gone into business together. There might have been another way to get the business working, but not as partners. So I would get advice on somebody. So definitely the startup world. Anyone who's worked with co-founders would know all about this, and do these kind of compatibility to everything from your intentions, your values, your goals for the next 2, 5, 10 years, because I think value driven is also really important. So yeah, I'd get advice from people that know what they're doing, and it's emotional, it's financial, it's even more than a marriage. A lot of the times you're probably spending more time with this person. But the other side of that is everybody has an idea and most people don't act on it. So the other side is, why not give it a go? Sometimes there are ways you can do it better than I did then, set it up better. But if you don't try, you'll never succeed.
Kind of at this stage, you've had this mainstream, amazing, career. You've kind of moved into these two other businesses. In your mindset, how do you put yourself back together when this business that you've put so much into has essentially just dissolved in front of you? Like, where do you go in your mind to move forward?
Well, it's a good question, because what I know now was I was actually really mourning it. So I think properly closing down and reflecting, and that's when the next chapter started, really, because then I wasn't working. I'd never seemed to run out of money, which is interesting back then, but I seemed to be okay, just pottering about, doing the odd kind of websites and stuff. And then my friend Annie again, remember, she phoned me up and said she was going traveling in September, and would I consider coming to Balmain in Sydney and dog sitting? That was Fred. And I remember thinking, yeah, actually, I miss Australia. I'm going to go back and do some dog sitting. So then I moved back to Australia in September 2019. And then I moved to Manly. And then, of course, COVID happened. So I come back with a backpack. So I had this idea, and I'm like, I can build websites. I know I can do that. I've done it before. So I went onto Facebook, and there's a group there that is very popular called Like-Minded Bitches Drinking Wine. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking for like 6 clients, and I got 6 people straight away. I mean, it was very cheap back then because I just needed to buy some food and pay rent. And I did, how long did I do that for? Maybe 6, 8 months, I think, until I got another contract. And then I started working for a marketing agency.
And so let's talk a little bit about that bouncing back and forth between corporate, because at this stage, obviously you've had a couple of businesses, or like 3 now. But I think this is something that a lot of people go through, where it's kind of like you go for it, and then there's this like, I need to go back and go back to safety. Now, from where you are, the perspective that you are now, what advice do you have about that?
When I first started, I had quite substantial savings when I started the Amazon project. So that's how I was able to do that completely on my own, bootstrapping. But it's a drain. If you are single, live alone, for example, and you don't have anybody else to help cover your rent and your food and your bills, then you're not only trying to build a business, working by yourself, doing 100 jobs, you're also trying to find the money to eat and do all of that.
Yeah.
So it is particularly draining. And I think I would think very hard about that again if I was starting out, on how to cover those basic needs. People take, waitressing jobs, bar jobs, anything that might just take that pressure off, or consulting in something you don't really love, but at least, it's paying the bills. So there's a really survival becomes an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about being really careful who you take advice from, because there's obviously lots and lots of people out there. And let's say, we'll talk about courses and our slight obsession with studying and learning from people. But it's like, obviously people out there, the main players on like YouTube or whatever, are like, if you're going to go in, just go all in and all that kind of stuff. But they're also sitting from a place of, absolutely smashing it, and no doubt they put in loads and loads of hard work, but they might have been single and living at home when they did that and had some financial flow of money, like mum or dad could have been there. Where I think your situation, you might be a single mum, or have a huge mortgage on your house, and then you're listening to somebody just go for it. And I think there is an element of that, but I also think you have to look at your own situation and who are you taking advice from? Is it someone in their private jet whose mum and dad were entrepreneurs and they've always been around this business knowledge, where you might not have had that, and you might have to study a bit more to get those basic skills? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and there's a lot of factors in there. One is, what is your risk tolerance? I have a very high risk tolerance. Like, I, for some reason, seem to like coasting very close to the edge. Not everybody likes doing that. I am much more, I'll just give it a go. But in terms of the courses and the people you're following, you're exactly right. So you're following like the Brendan Bouchards or the Hormozis or people like that. They have got 10, 15 years in business. They've made hundreds of millions. They are so far up here that they, a lot of the time they might have forgotten what it's like to begin. And there's a statistic, it's something like you only need to know 5% more than the people you're teaching. And sometimes it's easier to learn from someone who's just slightly above you, because they are still so familiar with that kind of, getting started. And if you look at someone like Alex Hormozy, who I really admire, I think he's done incredibly well, and he's also provided so much free information. But he's somebody who's like, forget about your morning routine. You roll out of bed at 5:30 and you start work, and then you're deep in work till 10 a.m. There are very few people that can just get up and just work. People might have kids or pets or something else in their life that means they can't just focus on that. Most people, particularly women, I know, are not anywhere like that. And we need to go out for a walk, and we need to see our friends, and we need to, take it a little bit more casually. So I'm not going to, that's not the way I'm going to work. I can take bits of it, but my life, particularly now I've got a dog, I can't just roll up and sit and work. So I think, looking at the courses, I mean, both you and I have spent probably thousands on courses.
I'm on a complete course ban right now.
Good.
I'm like, no more courses.
Good. And I've actually just bought one, but it's a program. I'm in another one. I'm in a 2-month, it's an accelerator. I'll tell you about that. You don't know about this one yet. And the other key thing about courses, once you've picked the person you're going to learn from, do it. Do what they say. And if it works, do it, because a lot of the time, I think there's something like 95% courses are never finished. So this is why people don't do it. So, money and cash flow is so important when you're a startup and you're a soulpreneur, that spending, a couple of grand on courses and not doing it is not a great investment.
About how the Soul Hive came to be.
Well, it's a story and a half, the Soul Hive. So in 2023, in March 2023, I was working as comms lead at KPMG Futures, the Future Technology Division, which I absolutely loved. I was, working with the quantum director and the AI experts, and the metaverse, and it was just all about kind of the future technology that's coming. There was a weekend at the end of February 23, and I'd been to a sacred meditation, that was quite profound. And at the end of the ceremony, on the day we were just leaving, I was having a chat with the facilitator. He was on this beautiful land, and I remember saying to him, he was saying, "Oh, it's cash flow, money. Might need to go back and get a job." And I said, "But you are living the dream. You're on this off-grid, and I started like spewing all this kind of business advice without even realizing it. And he was like, wait, let me write that down, and saying you should really help small businesses. And I was thinking, yeah, I would actually really love this. And I've got so much knowledge I don't realize. That was Saturday. Monday morning, I'm at my logging on to work, and at 9:30 I get an email saying, really sorry, but unfortunately your job has been made redundant. And I was like, whoa.
In an email? They sent you an email?
An email with KPMG. So I was like, oh my God, I didn't see that coming. But also I've just had this massive revelation like 2 days before of what I really want to do. So it was a shock, and I was really upset. But they gave me an incredible package, especially for only being there 2 years. So I left there actually being really positive, and I allowed myself the time and the space to really think about what this business was. And that's when the name, the Soul Hive, came from, because I wanted it to be a community, which is the hive of a supportive community for soulful entrepreneurs. They're just kind of, it's really just no wankers, no hustle bros. It's, it's really people doing it with a good intention and wanting to help. And I had this real resistance to renting out my spare room or getting any other kind of hospitality job. I was convinced, I'm like I can get another contract, I get more money doing that, and I really value my own space. So that's probably lesson number one when you're in that situation and you're trying to build something, is you need to focus on cash flow is king. Without cash, you kind of can't do anything. And that resistance was all pride. And I had so much pride, as in like, I'm too old to be house sharing. I need my office. Whereas looking back, if I had rented out that room faster, it would have made everything so much easier for me. So I struggled on for months and months, and I've rented out the spare room ever since. So that's kind of where the Soul Hive started. Through all that, I'm also trying to get clients and build websites. So the focus was all over the place. But in between that, I had absolute crackers, like beautiful ones. Yours is still one of the most beautiful ones I've done. And that was early on. That was one of the first,
I think I was the first.
The first Show It one that I did. I did a couple of e-commerce ones before then. And again, it's like people like you're putting your trust in me and taking a chance on me to, to bring your dream to life. That's what really got me through it. I think having the network that I have, and I'm so lucky that pretty much all of my friends are my target market. So I was able to, to kind of get through it. But so I think, again, maybe I needed to go through it. I feel like it was some kind of like cathartic rite of passage of just kind of being freaking nuts for a year, and burnout and everything, proper web design process. They're all like, a website in a day. And I'm like, I can't do this in a day.
I mean, in terms of, because we've talked a little bit about Hormozy, and I'm a big fan of his as well. Like, I think he's awesome. But obviously, that getting up at 5 a.m., whether it's in your own business or whether it's for a job or whatever, okay, I feel my personal experience of that is it is a very masculine energy of getting up, getting to work, and slamming out like 16-hour days. And I think this is my personal experiences. Like, I was doing that for years, right? I was doing that in the TV industry. And I think I was very much in my masculine energy, which led to burnout. What, like, you obviously work with a lot of entrepreneurs. Like, what's your take now on that kind of, like, I guess, that masculine and feminine approach to business and how you approach your business today?
I think you can take the best bits of all of it and figure out what works for you. And again, if you've got a family and kids, that's really going to direct how all this happens. And I think it's become I don't know if you've seen, there's a viral, this guy in the States, his morning routine, which is just off the charts, where he gets up at like 3:50 and has this bottled water and does this ice face bath. And then he does all these things and swimming. It's like
Oh,
4 hours.
it's not that Brian guy, is it? Who's
I
trying to
can't
stay
remember his
alive?
name, but
Mm.
everybody's just recreating it. And it's, that's what he does. And I think, like, didn't Marky Mark get up at like 2:30 in the morning and does his workouts? And I think the masculine energy, or maybe they're able to wake up in the middle of the night and work out, but it certainly isn't something that I have any desire to do. And it
Yeah.
doesn't work for me. And I think the female cycle is very different. But one of my teachers, the web design, is she doesn't start any work till 10 a.m. And
Hmm.
that's how she wants to live. And I'm like, that's, some people want to wake up at 8 a.m. If that's what you want to do, then you've got to figure it out. Because I think what you don't want to do is do something that your body hates and your mind starts to resent, and then you're just going to fall off it. So
Yeah. And also, I think just even waking up in the morning and even using that language of, like, I've got to do these 10 things before I even start my day. Like, I've got to work out. I've got to, it's so much pressure where it's just like, I'm not saying you just flow through your day and kind of have no direction, but it's like, even saying I've got to do these things first thing in the morning, it's like, can you just have a bit of time just to get back into your body? You've just woken up, and
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 that's a really good point, because I forget that. Instead of saying I've got to, change it to I get to.
I
I
get to,
get
yeah,
to, and that changes
yeah.
everything.
Who are the people that you follow and really resonate with and that you've learned the most from?
That changes a lot over time. I have been a big fan of Brendan Bouchard for a long time, because he, again, like a lot of them, gives away a lot of really good, valuable free content. And that's where I learned the content rhythm from, which I used in KPMG, which I use in my own business. Um, and it's all about getting the most value for the least amount of effort. So I find him, he's a really great leader. Jenna Kutcher is another one that I've kind of followed for about 5 years. She's just seems very natural, and again, gives away a lot for free.
Looking over everything that's happened in your entrepreneurial journey, is there any advice you would give to your younger self, like from a mindset point of view, from overcoming big challenges?
So much advice, so much advice. If I went back in time, I would be a billionaire within the first year. The first thing I do is save all your money and then invest it wisely. Then I would be like, set up an e-commerce business, digital products, and get onto YouTube. But really, the advice is to, I think, pick one and stick with it, and get mentors, really good mentors in your life, because that's another thing. I've never had, I guess, proper mentors that I've paid for and invested in. Because again, you get into this cycle of, well, that's extra money I haven't got. Certainly recently, when I left KPMG in March, with hindsight, then would have been a really good time to find a good business mentor, invest
Mm,
in them properly, and get some really good advice and methodologies and structure.
yeah.
So, there's a lot going back 20 years. I would have done things differently, but certainly the start of the Soul Hive, that would be the first thing I would do.
I think that's really good advice. Like, what impact do you feel now having a business mentor or having mentors in your life? How is that impacting your business now?
So it helps to have somebody else invested in you and your business. Even that investment is just for you personally, well, it's not a financial investment, and it's accountability. And having accountability partners means that I do the things that I say I'm going to do now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that without that kind of that structure around it, that container, I think it allows the business to grow and to bit by bit.
Yeah. And I think that it's really kind of interesting, like just this masculine feminine approach, because as the feminine, it's like that's our pure creative energy, right? That's where we get to create. But it also, it kind of needs that container of structure and discipline of the masculine. So it really is. I think just listening to you, it's like you're embodying perfectly. It's like this feminine, creative, energy where you get to help people and work with people. But obviously, we as women, we still need this structure. We need to draw on this discipline, consistency, and commitment, especially when it's in the business world.
And not only that, but I'm a double Pisces, which makes me like, ooh, I am, idea. Another thing. I need that kind of grounded, probably the more masculine, I'd say, container presence around it to go pull me back down and be like, sit down, finish this thing. And the other thing that's really helped me in this is looking at the bigger picture, having a plan on the calendar year that's like every single month I have a target, every quarter I have a target. And in order to hit that target, I have to do these things. So the calendar now, it's like, okay, I don't have to do everything at once. I'm going to launch a shop here. I'm going to launch a course here, and I'm giving myself the time to do it, the lead up, and it's like one thing at a time. And that takes all that kind of chaos out, and it's structured, but it's still achievable, and you can see where things are going to land, and from there kind of work out the finances and what you need to invest in it and what you know. So it's just it's things that we do in business, but there's 50 people doing all of that instead of just one.
Well, this is it, right? You've got so and so in accounts, someone on design, someone in marketing, 20 people in sales, where it's like that's the thing when you're in a business or creating a business, it's you, your services, but then you've got all these departments that you need to be in as well. So it's pretty crazy. What like in terms of website design, correct me if this is wrong, but the Soul Hive's main product is design of incredible websites and templates. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see entrepreneurs and business owners making that lead them ultimately coming to you for help?
Well, you are a prime example.
I didn't intend for that to come back to me, but I'm happy. It's all right.
You're
We can
a
go
perfect
there.
example, because
Oh God.
one of the things I love and I'm really good at is taking some shocking, shonky WordPress site and changing it into this beautiful, feminine, custom, totally branded show it website that works. So the number one thing people do wrong that I see is they go cheap, which generally means going on Upwork or Fiverr. And there are a lot of great freelancers on those sites. And I did this, I have done this many times back in the day, 10 years ago or so. Find someone to, in India, Nepal, $500, $1,000, build me a website, and you're just getting this thing.
Yeah.
The second thing everybody does is the very first thing when they decide they're going to start a business, they might have their name, is they then spend anywhere from 2 days to 2 weeks creating a logo. And I've seen people, do it in Canva. So you end up with a Canva logo that everybody knows is a Canva logo, or you go and hire a designer and you get a logo. So then you've got a business name and a logo and nothing else. And then when you come to me, it's it's not impossible, but it's harder to then fit a brand around a logo rather than the other way around. So the process that I have that works really well is we just start from scratch. We start completely fresh, and we go through this methodology, which starts with a brand strategy document, which is quite meaty. Then we go to Pinterest for visuals. Then from all of that, we take all of the elements and put it into like a brand mood board with a couple of options. And from that, we go deeper and deeper into who you are and what your brand is. And then I put it all into a website, and it's really only after that that I would put a logo together. And a logo generally for me is a word mark. It might have a little design element. I don't think anyone needs a logo to start. I think certainly not spending hundreds, if not thousands, on a fancy logo. It's got nothing to do with your business, and you're in the first year of business. Your business is going to change hugely as you're feeling your way through it. And I know mine has, I'm sure yours has, and you pivot and you change. And so if you've paid for this logo, it's not going to be the best investment. So I would say forget all of that, really start to, however that looks, but, go through this brand strategy. And I'm also just finishing, I've got some freebies that I'll be putting on my site, which are some digital downloads on how to self-guide yourself through the process, like a mini version of my brand strategy document to go through, figure out who you are and your offers. Do that first, then go through the website build, whether that's a DIY or whatever. And only after about 6 months at least, I would then start to look at a logo.
Okay. Yeah. But obviously, if someone like in my position, I had a shocking, like everything you just described, I had a pretty shocking website that was built by somebody in Nepal during COVID. And I had no idea where it was hosted. I had no idea of my passwords. I had no idea I had no idea. And unfortunately, the person that I was dealing with in Nepal, as much as he was a lovely man, he seemed all over the place as well. So it was like, yeah. So I remember I really wanted to change my website for such a long time, but I was almost mortified and embarrassed about going to see anybody about it because I was like, I don't know where anything is. It was a complete shambles. And I remember coming to you and you were so helpful. And I know this isn't your area of what you do, but you definitely gave me some great guidance on getting all that information. So thank you.
Well, that's another good point, right? Is particularly your domain, where that's hosted, your URL, is whoever owns that really owns your business. So if you're giving developers and random people access to your GoDaddy or wherever it's hosted, then and any back end to your website, you're kind of reliant, you're leaving yourself open. So I think, and certainly if someone's building it, there are two ways. You either give them your passwords or they go in through a kind of developer access. But your domain should always be yours, and I would keep that. Hold that like you hold your crypto, because you start suddenly getting famous or getting bigger, and someone comes along and snatches your domain, you're screwed. So there are basic housekeeping rules to keep that tidy. And I mean, the other thing that with all the clients, because I do see people's passwords for access into some of their tools as I'm setting it up, every single one, bar maybe two, use the exact same password over and over again, maybe with different numbers. And I'm like, oh no, because the hacking is going to get worse and worse. So use a password tool like Proton Pass or 1Password, one of those.
Yeah.
I think that would help.
Yeah, it's so important. It's so important. I think as the more entrepreneurs and more business, more websites are going to start popping up, even more than ever. I think that's a big part of the entrepreneur's journey, as well as your security, right? Everything's
Mm.
online, digital products, like you said, e-commerce. It's like you've got to protect, you've got to protect yourself as well. What about design? Like, what do you think? Obviously, I know it would be based on whatever your client comes to you about, but what are like the design no-nos? What's trending? What's big in websites at the moment? What should people be looking for design wise?
Well, again, that depends on what your business is and what you want to achieve on your website, because not everybody has the same goals. Generally, for my clients, their goals are credibility, awareness, and bookings. So they are, as a rule, funneling visitors from social media to their website to get more information and then book a discovery call or pay for an appointment, something like that. So there you've got a structure there, which is, it has to be clear, it needs to be relevant, and it needs to be easy to navigate. And the process, it's all about that process. Not everybody, not all websites that. Some are literally just kind of glorified brochures, which can give you more time to have fun and play around with, and because you're not necessarily got a kind of end point, if you like. But in terms of trends, I mean, there's a lot of exciting stuff happening in 2025. One of the big ones is there's a backlash against AI. So I design on Show It, which is loved by creators because it's almost like a freehand website design, which makes it a lot harder for me because lining things up is just, I have to do it manually. Whereas as opposed to using something like maybe a Webflow or Squarespace or Wix, where it's kind of like does it automatically. I mean, there's also been an explosion on website platforms, CMSs recently. So there's thousands to choose from. But so the AI backlash is there's a kind of a tendency towards perfect imperfection, which is great because that's kind of how I see my work. It's sort of or imperfect perfect, where there might be just slightly little things out of alignment because it's done by hand, it's done by a human. As opposed to AI just goes, and it's done in seconds and everything's like this. And there's no kind of emotion to it. So the personalization is really big this year. And I think it will be going forward, where you can see that a human has done it. And this also manifests in slightly crazy images, things that an AI probably wouldn't put together. So you might see a bit more kind of mashups and stuff like that. Another interesting one is text heavy is coming back, which I wasn't expecting. So we've kind of gone from back at the beginning of the World Wide Web, it was all kind of text, to hugely visual and images, and now we're coming back to more text heavy. And micro animations is big. So micro animations are, rather than things like whizzing around the pages, you'll get little details. So not just your kind of classic button hover change, but you might get some little unexpected things appearing. So I think, websites are fun and it's forever changing. And the joy of doing the custom sites that I do is that if you come to me and say, I really like this element here, then chances are we can figure it out and kind of add it in.
Yeah, so cool. And I mean, just talking on AI as well, obviously, there's this whole messaging AI is coming for your job. You work in the design and creative space as well. I mean, again, probably more from like a mindset point of view, because we know that AI is amazing. We know that it's got so much to offer, but like, how do you process that, being in the creative world, being in this graphic visual world that is being threatened by AI. Like how do you sort of process that?
I think I see it how I see life, right? You can see things as a positive or a negative, and the way you look at things, you'll get what you look at. If you think it's going to be, AI is going to threaten your life and your work and be this terrible kind of Terminator 2 kind of world, then that's what you're going to get. I choose to see AI as being helpful. It's a way to help us on the path to freedom. It can, once you trained it properly, it becomes our staff and our workers and our team. And my chat GPT, who I call G, he's super helpful, and I've trained him really well over the last few months, and he's got my brand voice completely nailed. He's got a memory that I don't have, so it helps with all those sorts of things, and is super helpful. So I'll ask him to do one thing, and then he'll suggest how about I do this, this, and this. So train it, use it to your advantage, and help on saving time, money, and everything else. And certainly, I mean, you can go onto Google and build yourself an AI website literally in 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Will it do everything you need? No, it won't. Will it, get you noticed? No. But it might be good enough for some people to start, to take that pressure of starting procrastination. Go and get yourself an AI site, stick it up there, and you've crossed one thing off. Because I know when stress and overwhelm comes along, everything's too hard. So that could be the easy option. And then you upgrade after that. So see it as a tool that is here to support us and not take over and ultimately destroy us.
Yeah. I mean, we laugh now, who knows in 10 years, but I think right now you just got to, I mean, be grateful for this amazing technology, right? That it's incredible. And I just feel the more that you embrace it and the more that we jump on the train now and kind of use it and get to know it, like the better, right? What's it? Forewarned is forearmed,
Yeah, and it's all about the prompts and training it. I mean, of course, everything can be used for good or evil. And look at the governments around the world and the choices that they're making on whether to make our lives easier or harder. And I understand the fear with AI because we're giving it everything. Particularly those people that have Alexas and use Siri, and it's always listening. It's got absolutely everything about us. So, of course, it could lock us out of our businesses, of our lives, of our banking systems. It can do all of that. It can impersonate us. And now we've got people, which is easy to do, creating avatars with your own voice, your own face. How soon before, AI starts to become us and then we're no longer viable? But again, believing and trusting in the right people monitoring this and the good in the world, that's where I think it's we will ultimately stay in control.
Or I mean, just not survive but thrive, continue to thrive. That's what we want, right?
Yeah, we want to be living lives where we can get up and do our 4-hour morning routine if we want, and then go to the beach and read books, because AI is churning away behind the scenes and pumping out our perfectly on brand social media and running our automations and doing the customer service and cleaning our houses and doing all those shitty things that we don't want to do. That's where I'm seeing the future. I'm not seeing it as me being trapped and it's taking over and I've got no money coming in because it's doing it. I'm controlling it, and it's working for me and allowing me the freedom that I want.
That's what we all want. Yeah. So where can people find your work, Fee? What tell us about that and what you've got coming up?
So you can find me on Instagram at the.soul.hive, or you can find me on my website, which is thesoulhive.com, and starting a YouTube channel later this year. But Instagram is the easiest place to get hold of me, or info@thesoulhive.com.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming. It's really good to see you. And yeah, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your journey. And also, I know there was so much information in there that I know is going to be really useful for a lot of people when it comes to their own entrepreneurial journey and their websites and all the design aspects. So thank you so much for coming on today.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me. It's been
Yeah,
fun.
no worries. I'll see you soon.
See you.